Right, welcome to the Grappling with Physio podcast. Today I'm joined by judo coral belt and sixth dan.
Yeah, indeed.
Dave Nicholls from Warwickshire Judo and BJJ Club. Dave, how are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you. I've been really looking forward to meeting you. We've had a few messages, haven't we? Actually, when you first messaged me about doing a podcast, I was like, "What, little old me? Why why would you be interested in what I've been doing?" And I had a look on your channel, on your YouTube channel, and saw all these great individuals of high standing, and thought, surely I can't fit in with those guys. So yeah, I'm feeling quite honoured to be interviewed by you.
Well, I think you're being very modest there, Dave, because your kind of experience and your rank in judo speaks volumes and speaks for itself. And that's why we're here to kind of talk about it today, because it is grappling with physio. It's not just about kind of necessarily BJJ players or no-gi grapplers. Judokas are grapplers as well. Judokas are, you could argue, the case were the very first grapplers, essentially. I know judo was formed initially as a sport, wasn't it? But from there, it's developed. Why don't we go back to the beginning with yourself? How did you? I know you started judo at a very young age, at the age of 7. Why judo?
Yeah, I can thank my brother and my mother for that. So my brother was quite shy and didn't really want to talk to people or talk to strangers, and it was quite a worry for my mother. So my mum took Tony to Sale Judo Club near Manchester, well, in the Great Manchester area. And in order for him to sort of gain some confidence, she thought that if he's having to grapple with people, that could be an initial sort of form of communication, really, and then that might bring him out of himself, which it did. Did great things for my brother. He's a fair bit older than I am. He's 7 years older, and everything that he did, I wanted to do, and I remember when he started at the club, I wanted to join in, and Akinori Hosaka, so Sensei Akinori, I call him Aki, was the coach at Sale Judo Club, and he wouldn't let me do judo until I was 7, so I had to sit on the sidelines for a year and watch my brother doing judo. I remember earliest memories really was, my brother coming home from judo and showing me techniques that he'd learned. And I think Aki sort of had this idea that whilst your body's sort of growing and stuff, getting thrown about is not a great thing, for children. Possibly that. I never really talked to him about it and asked him, actually. So possibly that. But the other thing that I've learned relatively recently when I read Yamashita's book. Yamashita was arguably the greatest judo player of all time. And when he started judo, he was sort of put in the corner and told to do break falls for 6 months. And that was all he was allowed to do. And I think that 2 things was happening there. His coach was testing his resolve, testing his commitment to find out, whether he, had what it took to be worthy of the coach's time, And the other thing that I suspect would be that if you get really good at break falls and being thrown, you're then able to attack with your opponent with gay abandon, as I put it, which always makes everyone smile. Because you're not worried about getting countered.
I was going to say, please, please.
You've got no fear of being thrown. Your break falls are great, So anyway, I think that Aki probably, wouldn't let me start to either test my resolve. Might have been about protecting me because I was small and skinny and frail. So yeah, I started at Sale Judo Club to answer your question.
Brilliant. How did you make it down to the Midlands then? How did you progress down this way?
So I met Neil Adams. So I was at a course, I think it was Warwick, and Neil Adams was at this course. This was in late 1989, 1990 maybe, and I was at this course with Aki. So Aki was coaching and Neil Adams was coaching, and I had a practice with one of Neil's students called Simon Moss. He'd be an interesting person for you to have a chat with, actually, and he's local as well.
Yes, I've met Simon. I've met Simon.
Oh, have you? Have you
well,
done a podcast with him already?
No. I actually used to train open mat at the Coventry Judo Club on Fridays.
Oh, right, okay.
Sporadically on and off. I would used to go there to try and develop my stand-up, and I've met Simon quite a few times. So but I do want to speak to him. I'd love to speak to him. Yeah.
So I think, I mean, he's a great guy, a real character, very funny. So anyway, I was practicing with Mossy, and he was only 60 kilos, I think, at the time, and I was sort of, mid 70 kilos, and I was, how old? 18 years old. Thought I was the dog's bollocks, and Mossy threw me with like a little coachy Gary thing and sat me down, and then spent the rest of the practice just kind of blocking me out, really. And it was, really competitive, and I was really super surprised at how strong he was, and so just really impressed with all of Neil's lads, all of the full-timers, and Neil asked Aki if Neil could ask me if I wanted to train full-time with him in Coventry, at the Neil Adams Club, which is what it was called then, because Neil got the club from Coventry Judo Club. And initially I said no, because I'd had a practice with Neil as well, and I properly got my ass handed to me for 5 minutes. I mean, like, my right hand didn't touch his lapel once. He absolutely brutalized me, and probably because I was a cocky, arrogant, teenager, and needed to be shown what the score was. Probably it might have been that's just the difference in level, and he was taking it easy on me. I don't know. I should ask him when I see him next. So I was sulking, and so Neil said, do you want to come and do some, train full time with me? And I've got a dozen lads and a few girls, and and I was sulking, so I said no. And for about a week after that, I was constantly replaying that conversation in my mind. And I was just thinking, in 20, 30, 40, 50 years time, will I be wondering what if I'd have gone and trained full time, at the Neil Adams Club? What could I have done? And I didn't want to be having, that conversation with myself, asking myself that question, what if? So I called Neil and asked him if the offer was still open, and he said, yeah, come down and do some training. So that was it. I left everything in Manchester, my job and my home, sort of with my parents, and moved to Cov, and so that's how I got to the Midlands.
Wow. What's in your opinion, how good was Neil back then? I don't want to say now, obviously we know he's retired and he's he's in a different position now, but when you kind of met with him, then because you trained under him for years, how good was he?
He was the best in the world. There's no doubt about it. He was probably at that time the most successful European judo player of all time. Potentially, you could say he's been eclipsed by Teddy Riner now. But at the time he was by far the best in the world, and he was really well renowned for not just how powerful he was and how competitive he was, because that guy, I'd never met anyone as competitive as Neil, in everything that he did. When we went for a run, he needed to hammer you at running. When we did weights, he needed to hammer you at weights. Every single thing that he did, he was super competitive. So not only did he have that kind of drive, but technically he was perfect. And the Japanese used to have him, come over to Japan and coach. So I know that the Japanese revered his technique, and I know that because Aki, used to tell me that. So I think if the Japanese, revere you, it's not just respect, but absolutely worship, your technique, then that, says everything. Not only that, but I was training every day with Neil and practicing with him every day for 6 years during the 90s, from 1990 to 96. And during that time, I only threw him once. And we were doing randori, so it wasn't contest. We were doing randori, and in randori, you throw people. Everyone gets thrown. It's part of the one of the amazing things about BJJ and judo, isn't it? That you're constantly being humbled. Would you bear with me just 2 ticks? So sorry about that, Paul.
That's okay. Just pause that on the recording. So carry on.
Yeah, sorry. What was I saying?
You were basically saying you only threw him once.
Whether you were listening.
No, you said yeah. You only got to throw him once, but that was in randori.
Yeah, that's right. And we were just talking about the difference between randori and contest. And in randori, you're throwing people all the time. It's part of the stress testing of the sport and the martial arts, and it's part of the character building and the humility that you learn through grappling. And so during that whole time, I only ever threw him once. And I practiced in a lot of different countries on training camps around the world, and trained with amazing judoka, and may have been a little bit of the competitive thing in Neil that he doesn't like getting thrown even when he's randorian, but yeah, he was levels and levels above anyone that I've ever practiced with. By far the best judoka in the world at that time, in my opinion. In fact, actually, not just in my opinion. I'll tell you a story about who was it? It was a chap that beat Neil in the final of the Olympics.
The Belgium, was it the Belgian guy? Was it the first Olympic where he came silver, or the second one? I think he lost to a Belgian and a French guy in the finals.
It'll come back to me in a minute, but he said that Neil Adams was better than him, and was far better than him, better than everyone else in the world, and that he was only better than Neil Adams for 1 second in one match, and it just happened to be in the final of the Olympics when he caught him, which I think speaks volumes to how good Neil was. Yeah.
I'd say, well, I did meet him. I went to his house to do the podcast, and when I rocked up, he was, Nicky said, oh, he's just in the gym on the treadmill, and all I could hear was this, and it was him on the rower. just going hell for leather. But what an amazing gentleman. I mean, I'd approached them, I'd went over, I'd never really met them before, I'd never come face to face, and next thing I find myself in this kind of 45-minute one-on-one private with Neil Adams. And
right, did you get to have a practice with him?
Oh yeah. Well,
wow.
he was I mean, and I just said, Neil, should we do the podcast now, because I'm conscious of the time? And he went, oh yeah, of course. I literally drove back. I couldn't sleep for hours that night to pinch myself. It was fantastic.
Yeah, he'll take the time to chat to anybody. He's one of the most down to earth, grounded individuals you'll meet. Super nice guy.
What's that like? That training at that level, that grind, I suppose that's a good way of describing it. Because my current jiu-jitsu coach was a former member of the Paralympic squad, Steve Turbot.
Okay.
And he was down at, I think it was when the judo team were in Dartford, and he was there for 2 years, full stop. And he said it's like, full time, you're training 3 times a day. Yeah. 5, sometimes 6 days a week, and then you might be competing. Describe that kind of lifestyle.
It's great. It's like every man's dream, isn't it? It's every young man's dream, surely. Just to do what you love every day. That's awesome. it's tough, it's tough on your body, and it's tough mentally as well. And I guess everyone likes to talk about all of the tough stuff that they go through and woe is me and stuff, but yeah, it's a privilege. If you get the opportunity to train full time and do something that you're really passionate about, I think you should grab it with both hands and go for it.
Well, you mentioned the mental toughness. How do you overcome that? Like, especially imagine a hard morning where you've been sparring, maybe randori, doing a bit of training, and then right, this afternoon we've got Newaza, and you just think there's going to be some absolute monsters, going to be some heavyweights in there. How did you overcome that?
Well, it's a build up over time, isn't it? Just overcoming injuries, overcoming illness, overcoming disappointment in not achieving what you set out to achieve, because there's an awful lot of that. You don't win all the time, and you don't beat everyone in training all the time. You're constantly being humbled, and challenged, and that mental toughness, I think, is built up over time. I don't think anybody comes in off the street and is able to train all day every day, and start competing at a high level. That mental toughness takes some time to build up, and in my opinion, it's the greatest thing about competitive martial arts, and I say competitive martial arts, I'm including wrestling, BJJ, judo, what else have we got? MMA, maybe some Muay Thai, any martial arts that are where you're getting properly stress tested.
Boxing.
Yes, yeah, but so yeah, the thing with boxing and Muay Thai is that it's in my opinion, it's not sustainable art. It's not something that you can do for the whole, forever. Whereas you can do BJJ and judo forever, and that sets it apart. And I think you get all of the, the benefits of character development through the grind of grappling, as you will do through mixed martial arts or striking, but you had the added benefit of being able to do it for decades.
Were there any times where you felt like just jacking it in and walking away?
Oh, all the time.
How did you get
all the time, like every week? Yeah, all the time. Just and it's not just you go to a competition that you've been training for months, looking forward to, and that, and you're going to dominate and you're going to throw everybody for whereupon, and you're going to be the hero and get glory, and then you lose in the first match or something, or you lose on the way to the final, or you lose in the final, and not just those kind of devastating disappointments, which stay with you for sometimes a day, sometimes forever, but also I remember one time we used to do this thing at the Neil Adams Club. Every week we'd draw people's names out of a hat, and whoever names we drew out, they'd have to fight. And shouldn't say fight really, I'd say compete. I remember I had Matt Ruff, and Matt Ruff was junior European champion. The guy was super talented, really talented, beautiful technique. I think Matt Ruff has got the most beautiful uchimata of anyone I've ever seen, absolutely amazing. And but he was 65 kilos and I was 78 kilos, so I felt like I was gonna, and I, in my opinion, trained harder than he did, because he was just super talented, and I didn't think he trained as hard as I did, so I was kind of quite dismissive about him. And anyway, he threw me with this Tomonagi, so the one where you put your foot in the stomach and you kind of whiz them over, and it's very spectacular. And it was the sweetest throw I think that anybody's ever thrown me with. And all of my peers, all jumped up and were going, "Whoa, that's amazing!" And I was so bummed out about it. I remember walking home to the YMCA, which is where I was sleeping, where I was staying, which is also another story. It's not a pleasant place. And I remember sitting on my bed, and I was almost to the point of weeping. I was so devastated. So and then you've got the disappointment of, like, I remember when I first went to the Neil Adams Club, my first practice there, I'd left home, I'd brought all of my gear, down to Coventry. Neil suggested I just come and try it out for a couple of weeks first, and then decide whether I was doing that. I was like, no, I'm all in, this is happening. So I get there, get on the mat for the first practice, and I rolled my ankle and sprained my ankle, and I was off like 2 weeks, because in those days there's no real professional kind of physio or anything like that. So I was in this like box room in this lady's flat on my own for 2 weeks with a sprained ankle, just miserable. So there's, you're constantly questioning what you're doing. So yeah, that is part of the growth, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. What stopped you from walking away? What was that one thing that
question? What if?
Yeah.
Same question. Right. What if?
Wow. What would you say? What skills have you learned from that type of lifestyle, working, competing at that type of level, that you're able to transfer into your life outside of judo?
That's a good question, isn't it? I think the resilience thing. I think it's the character development of overcoming adversity. So Kevin Webb, who I think you've also interviewed, and is my business partner, along with Tom Granjon. Kevin and I both shared the same experience. We both had a fairly decent stroke, and that's quite an inconvenience for a while. And we both lost cognitive function. We both lost vision. We had to relearn how to do things. So yeah, I mean, trying to, I guess, sort of approaching that recovery in a positive fashion. Looking at the positive things, i.e., it didn't kill us. Things could have been much worse. I didn't die. How lucky am I? That I've had this experience and it didn't kill me. So just sort of reframing things in a positive fashion, and moving forwards, and not sort of dwelling in a woe is me fashion. I think is probably the greatest thing that judo's given me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. I think it's really valid. I would say, since,
because you're going through this same grind now, aren't you? You're training a lot.
I train as much as as a married parent of 3 children running a full-time job at a physio clinic can. And a lot of that, I mean, I'm 43, so it's like I would say I do a minimum of 3, sometimes 4 sessions a week. Which I have to balance out, because it can take its toll on my body. I wasn't always a grappler. I did quite a bit of boxing. That's how I progressed into it. I agree with you. I don't think striking sports are something that you can maintain, and it's definitely something you should do when you're younger. But I think you're right.
So Paul, I think what you're doing is and you're not the only one. There are a lot of chaps that are training a lot, holding down family and job and stuff, and trying to balance that whole thing, and I think that's as admirable, if not more so, than the full-timers, in their 20s, because when you're that age, you don't have the responsibilities. You can do what you want, and you have that youth behind you. And also, you know, athletically, you know, your body recovers a lot quicker. You're just more athletic, aren't you, as a 20-year-old than you are when you're in your 40s. So yeah, I mean, you know, I think what you're doing is, you know, just as impressive, you know, and you're going to get all of the same sort of benefits that, you know, someone who's training full time in the 20s is going to get.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many more benefits rather than just the physical, you know, the mental health benefits I get from being on the mat. You know, it's quite tribalism. There's, you know, you got your hierarchy of your head instructor. Not that we put too much emphasis on that, you know, once you get on the mat, everybody's equal in that aspect, you know, but there's so much more that I get from training, as well as the physical and the skill set. You know, there's community there, and it really fills a lot of gaps for me in things that I need. And I think as well, if you've done any form of you know, physical combat sport, martial arts as a younger person, you want to keep it going when you get older. And I was looking, there was a void that kind of needed to be filled after I'd stopped boxing. You know what I mean? I kind of plugged it and filled it a little bit with drink, you know, and going out, and then that gets a little bit boring. Then you kind of plug it with, you look for other things. I remember doing CrossFit for a bit, you know, and then just going ridiculous on your training. And then, you know, a penny drops. I had a patient that came in, and he'd had loads of things wrong with him, and it was him that suggested, you know, jiu-jitsu. When he first suggested it, I had this image of, you know, it was Aikido. For some reason, I pictured Aikido. And he said, no, you should watch the documentary. He said, have you ever heard of the Gracies? And I said, didn't one of those win the UFC? And he went, yeah, but watch this documentary called Choke. So I watched Choke, and watched it one night, and I couldn't sleep for ages. And I was like, right, sign me up.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It was incredible. And it was a real game changer. But yeah, it's difficult.
The great thing about it is, with BJJ, you know, is that it's endless in terms of the technical stuff, you know. In fact, actually, you know, this idea of the endless amount of techniques that there are and things that you can do really was brought home to me the other day. I was coaching a guard pass, and Jono, one of my students and friends, said, oh, you know, you can do this, and he showed me, I don't know whether it's like a leg drag, or I don't know what the BJJ guys call it, but basically your opponent's kind of pressing the hips with their feet, pressing your hips with their feet, and you press into them, and when they push back, you basically sidestep, you know, shoo the legs out of the way, you know, skip to the side, just put your knee in their stomach and just go, what's that, knee on belly, isn't it, you call it? And I was like, oh, that's wicked, you know, I've never seen that before, you know. And I've been doing judo, how long have I been doing judo? Since 1978. So it's quite a long time. I know.
That was a year before I was born.
It's quite a long time, isn't it? And and I've been doing judo, you know, at a relatively high level for, you know, a good 10 years of that period. And I was like, that's wicked. You know, I love BJJ. It's brilliant. You've just, you know, got so many things that they do, you know. And then I was watching YouTube, and there was some chap, I think it's called Shadi or something. He's a judo nut. He absolutely loves judo, and he does nice videos on how amazing judo is, you know.
Yeah.
And he was showing some old footage of, it's not Kimura, it's not Maida. This super old guy with silver hair, and he did that move. He was doing loads of stuff on the ground, and he did that move, that very same move. And I was like, oh my god, you know, it's amazing how things become sort of full circle, you know, and the depth and yeah, what really occurred to me was that I've done judo, you know, for so long with so many different people, and I haven't seen that. And yet it was being done, I guess that footage, you know, is kind of black and white. So, you know, and it's kind of stilted, you know, video. So I'm guessing 1930s, 1940s, you know, something of that kind of era, you know, and there's still all of these techniques for me to discover. And another example of this is when I went to Braulio's place in Birmingham, and this was probably 10 years ago, something like that. And you know, I was just discovering BJJ. And he had 5 of his friends from Brazil who were all world champions there training.
Wow.
and about, I don't know, 10, 15, maybe 20 brummies. And I got my ass handed to me for about an hour and a half right on the ground. It was really embarrassing because I went in and I didn't have a white belt for starters. And I asked Braulio, I said, it's Braulio Estima, isn't it?
Estima,
you know, and I asked,
yeah.
and now I asked him as well. I said, you know, I've done a lot of judo, but never done any BJJ, and I don't have a white belt. I'm sorry. Can I borrow one? And he was like, no, you're fine. You know, he was just let me go on with black belt. And so I ended up, I know. So I ended up kneeling up with these other downgrades, you know, and everyone was really super nice. Everyone was really nice, you know. But the thing is though, that I was getting submitted with stuff that I thought I knew well, you know, and I was getting submitted with loads of stuff I'd never seen before, you know. Yeah, I mean, that was a big eye opener for me, you know, and also, you know, it's encouraging for us that are in the sport to know that there's so much you can, you know, the sustainability of it, you know, you can continue to do it for forever and learn new stuff from everybody, you know, low grades and high grades, you know, you're always picking up new things, rediscovering things, you know, and you know, what other sporting activity can you do that in?
Yeah, you're right. What other sporting activity can you meet and train with some of the greatest people in the world? I mean, it's just bizarre. It blows my head.
That's the other thing. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, you know, you couldn't go and have a session with Nadal, you know, tennis. You know, you turned up at Neil Adams's place and he gave you 45 minutes, had a little private roll around with him. You know, it's awesome, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing art.
What do you think in regards to, you know, because you said, well, look, that technique, you'd seen it all those years ago with that little old guy with silver hair doing it. Do you think the development of the sport of judo, because it's changed, you know, the way
Mifune. His name is Mifune. Mifune. I think it was him that the Japanese had this saying, you know how the Japanese translation never translates very well in English, so forgive me, but it's, you know, but you'll get the sentiment. I think the saying in Japan is that no one comes before Mifune and no one comes after him, i.e. he's the greatest ever, you know, he's the GOAT. Yeah, and I'm probably saying his name wrong as well, but it's spelled Mifune. I'm sure that was him.
Okay.
So I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Well, it's a good reference to the person now, so I'm sure people will.
Yeah, I think that's very important, actually, that you should, you know, give credit where it's actually due. You know, provenance of techniques is very important to me, and I always reference Aki, my coach, Sensei Hosaka, and Neil Adams, and other people that I pick techniques up off. You know, I always reference those individuals when I'm coaching. You know, I try not to bore my membership too much with it, but I always do give them the credit where it's due. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I think it was Sir Isaac Newton has said that. You know, we stand on the shoulders of giants or something like that, wasn't it? If you can see further, it's because he stands on the shoulders of giants. And that's how I feel, you know. There's that. And then there's also like a self-protection thing. You know, if I show some technique, like I remember at I remember I was coaching at Warwick University, and I was coaching Tai Toshi, and a student came up to me and said, oh, my coach said that you should do it like this, because if they do this, then you can do that. And I said, well, this is how I was shown by Neil Adams, so take it up with Neil, and ask Neil about it when you see him. I just do it how Neil does it, And something else that echoes this sentiment is just like the very meaning of sensei. So I joined the British Judo Council, and they call everybody sensei. Well, they call all the coaches sensei, and that wasn't really my culture with Aki and Sale Judo Club, and we were part of the BJA, British Judo Association, which is the national governing body for judo. And so and I felt like calling people sensei was a bit I don't know, like you're showing deference to them, and I wasn't comfortable with it until somebody told me what it actually means. And what it actually means is the one that went before. It's just saying the one who has a little bit of experience, has kind of done this stuff before. So that, for me, that kind of ties in with the talking about the provenance of a technique. The whole thing sort of works together.
I think BJJ is in that kind of predicament at the moment, because the word teacher, when it's translated from Portuguese, is professor.
Right? Yeah. So now we kind of think that has been a little bit kind of up themselves. Why you make it? Why are we being called professor, sort of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, and then people are saying, well, hang on a second, professor's an academic title that you have to apply years and years of studying to.
Yeah.
And then you could argue the case. Well, I have applied years and years of studying.
Yeah,
I didn't get this black belt in my cereal box. You know what I mean? So whatever. It's each to their own. Now, you said about a technique, and this is where I wanted to get onto before we kind of had a little bit of comms issue there. Do you think the development of judo in sport, has kind of got rid of a lot of techniques, so therefore has, I don't want to say watered it down, but changed it? Because if you look at the likes of, let's say, when you were competing at international level, even like Neil in the Olympics, as opposed to now, the difference, the time, and I know they say like Neil's the voice of judo, and you listen to him talking about rule sets if you're watching judo, and him breaking it down, and how that has, how that applies to the sport. Do you think that's why essentially judo's lost some of those techniques?
So yeah, I mean, I hadn't done any leg grabs since 1996. Well, I don't know when they discarded leg grabs, sometime in the late 90s, maybe, something like that, because you were always allowed to do leg grabs in my day. In my day, may sound really old, doesn't it? I guess I am now. But I remember going to Stevie B's in Birmingham. Kevin Webb was coaching, and Kevin Webb and I had a little grapple, and he was taking me down at ease with leg grabs, and it's because I hadn't done them for so long. He was probably also quite good at them, to be fair. And so yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. You take something out of a sport and it dilutes it. Everyone plays to the rules that they're given in order to win. And therefore, not just dilutes it, diminishes it. It diminishes its effectiveness. And Jigoro Kano, who's the founder of judo, was actually quite against judo becoming an Olympic sport. He relented in the end and allowed judo to join the Olympics when he got given a place on the Olympic committee, and he discussed the values of the Olympics and the values of judo, and felt that they were aligned, and basically sort of got cajoled and coerced into allowing judo into the Olympics. And what he was afraid of was judo just becoming a sport. And he always felt that judo was much more than just a sport. You know, that he was, well, you know, the whole principles for him was that, you know, judo was about, like, it's like an education. You know, you're supposed to become a stronger individual, so that you can more effectively contribute to society. That was his philosophy. You know, he's got two major sort of underpinning kind of values for judo, and one is jutokoi, which is mutual welfare and benefit and prosperity. And so, i.e., you know, you practice with your partner and you grow together, you know. And the other is Soryoki Zenyo, which is the making use of the maximum use of your efficiency, you know, being efficient and effective, you know. And he felt that if you trained in judo really hard, you'd become a strong character, especially if you trained with those two values in mind. You know, it's not just about beating up your partner, and it's about being effective and efficient. And if you train hard, you become a strong character, and then you're going to be more effective at contributing to society, you know, which I think is an amazing sort of outlook, you know, for, you know, Jigoro Kano was in his 20s when he came up with judo. And I think it's amazing that, you know, he felt that, you know, he could contribute to humanity. You know, it wasn't just about your local community and your training partner. You know, he sent out his best students to spread the word of judo across the world. And, you know, he wanted to make a massive change to humanity. You know, I think he was an educator. I think it's amazing. So those were his lofty ideals about judo. You know, it wasn't just a sport and about winning medals and, you know, becoming a world champion or being better than somebody else. You know, for him, it was about character development and contributing to your society. That was the ideal of judo. And, you know, and Jigoro Kano was absolutely right. You know, he puts it in the Olympics and everyone's obsessed with going to the Olympics, winning gold medals, you know, winning medals, and loses sight of, you know, the character development that you gain on on your journey in training, you know. What was the question? Sorry, I do go on here.
No, don't worry. So, well, what I was going to say is,
oh, you were talking about diluting. You were talking about diluting the art.
Yeah, we were talking about how
right.
it becomes a sport.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we go, because it's so interesting, the history, you know, because and I don't want to spread misinformation, but from what I've read and seen, judo came from jiu-jitsu, traditional jiu-jitsu. All right, there was always traditional jiu-jitsu, which has been around for years. And if you think about traditional jiu-jitsu, that encompasses weapon handling, etc., which derives from samurais, okay, which were the ultimate warriors. Then they developed judo from traditional jiu-jitsu, so it could be a sport and implemented into schools in Japan. Like you said, with the bigger picture, that if people did that, they became better, more focused energy on the mat instead of, you know, violence outside of it, etc. From that, you have the one of the main guys from judo traveling the world, going to Brazil,
Maeda.
Mitsu Maeda, and once Mitsu Maeda, you know, found himself in Brazil through apparently a Scottish family, the Gracies, that had settled there or had Scottish roots, who helped him.
I didn't know that, really.
Apparently, yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah, depending on which documentary you watch, they're apparently originated from Scotland. That you know, that
That's
settled
amazing.
in Brazil.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that helped him. And then from that, you know, you get this branching off of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which was essentially judo in that formation. Because one of the Gracies didn't have he had a respiratory condition, couldn't stand up, found it quicker and better if he went to the floor a lot quicker. Then you get this development. Now, already judo had recognized that with Newaza, the ground game, but where that kind of stopped, BJJ just took off, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think the jiu-jitsu name might have been transferred to the art in Brazil possibly because I think Maida was doing challenge matches, so he was doing, and they didn't like that. Judo didn't, you know, Kano and his crew didn't like that. You know, they felt that it was cheapening the art, you know, to do it for the purposes either of professional gain or entertainment, you know, and they didn't really like that idea. And so therefore, in order to kind of protect himself, I don't know whether maybe he was using a pseudonym but you know, he actually referred to his art as jiu-jitsu as opposed to judo in order to sort of try and protect Kodokan judo, you know. And so therefore, I think if he was using the you know, the term jiu-jitsu, then I guess it would be the natural kind of progression for somebody, you know, who wanted to, you know, start their own art as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It would make sense. Or did they call it Gracie Jiu-Jitsu?
Good question.
I think they might have called it Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and then I think it's been widened to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, I think they called it. I don't want to say anything that's going to get me sued, you know. But I think they called it Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and then trying to protect that title.
Right. Okay.
Which I don't think they could, and then it branched off and became Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Anyway, but there's similar concepts in the way it's spread. You know. Produce better people, contribute better to society. Interestingly enough, I mean, you're a.
Can we go back to? Sorry, Paul. Before we move on, can we go back to the rules thing?
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. Because you know, whilst I think that taking leg grabs out has diluted the sport, diminished the sport even, or the effectiveness of the sport, and whilst I think that the time on the ground isn't sufficient, Kevin Webb came up with a brilliant observation regarding, you know, if you throw somebody and overthrow them and they end up on your back, you know, then you're in the shit, you know, if it's a street fight. So I think that was a really, really good point. And, you know, Kevin Webb says maybe it should only be an ippon if you stay on your feet, you know. So I think he's made some, you know, really, really good point that I haven't considered and probably need some time thinking about. So whilst there are certainly drawbacks to the sporting element and the rules that we have in judo, I would say that the rules have never been better than they are at the moment. And I think Neil Adams has done an amazing job of guiding and leading the way with rules development. I think it's brilliant. You know, the scoring system is great, much better than it was in the 90s when I was competing. I think the judo itself has evolved and is better than ever, which is kind of natural in every sport. You know, every generation comes along and makes it better, don't they? So yeah, I think it's clearer. I think it's better. And I absolutely love watching judo now. I think it's brilliant. I don't know what you would do about that. I think they started to reintroduce the idea of being able to touch the legs now in the exchange of throws. So I think if you attack with a throw and then touch the legs, I think that's okay. And I think you can touch the legs in a counter. I'm not sure. I need to read up on it. But yeah, whilst I think that, you know, the taking leg grabs out diminishes the effectiveness of the art as a fighting art, I think the rules development has been absolutely brilliant. I think Neil's done an amazing job.
How did you and Kev come across each other then? Because you both, you know, you business partners, like you previously said. You run the judo aspect, the Warwickshire Judo Club. He runs the BJJ aspect. How did you guys how did that come together?
So it's just Warwick Judo and BJJ Club. So Tom Granjon is the conduit for that. So Tom is Kevin's student, so where did I meet Kev first? I think I may have gone to one of Kev's sessions with Tom, so I think that would have been the introduction. But in terms of Kevin joining Tom and I with our club. I'm so grateful that Kev has trusted Tom and I enough to come into business with us, you know, you know, his contribution is absolutely invaluable. You know, the technical brilliance of the guy on the mat is well, it's just awesome. You know, he brought a load of students over to the club, and loads of experience of running the club as well, you know. So Tom and I have ideas about what we want to do, and you know, Kevin's, you know, really contributed in terms of, you know, the direction of what we're doing, and the Nexus brand as well, you know, this you know, so Nexus is the umbrella organization which is owned by Kev, and you know, this principle of well, Nexus means like a single focal point where sort of disparate points join, and so that forms the idea of his jiu-jitsu, his Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and how he coaches. You know, he connects techniques together, you know, and furthermore, he's broadened that to, you know, an idea of the actual club itself and the community that we're building. You know, that the club is a focal point for the disparate members of a community, you know, and that team kind of ideal and ethos that's promoted in our club, you know, I think really helps make us stand out. So, you know, Kev's been absolutely invaluable in the direction this club's taking.
Well, when I spoke to Kev and interviewed him for the podcast, he said that at the moment they're both running parallel alongside each other, judo, BJJ, but not much kind of cross-pollination. How do you kind of see that like progressing?
There's not much. He's right. There's not much cross-pollination from BJJ to judo, but from judo to BJJ, you know, I think I've got like 35 members of the judo club, and I think maybe a dozen of those do the BJJ. Now, Kev and Tom have got probably 100 members of BJJ club, and maybe only 2 or 3 of those do judo. So perhaps it's the level of coaching. That's what it might be. Maybe I'm not engaging enough. Yeah, come to think of it, loads of them have tried judo and thought, nah, shit.
Well, I would say maybe an idea of like one session where, and this is why I sought out Coventry Judo Club, because I went to a comp and got took down very easy, and I was like, I need to work on my stand-up game. Yeah. So maybe, like, you know, introducing like stand-up for BJJ comps, you know, and then
right.
It's just an idea. I don't
just
know.
Like you know, that's a great idea. Judo has Niwaza competitions, you know, groundwork competitions. So they start, you know, I don't know, I've never been to one, never seen it, but you know, I think they just start kneeling down, facing each other, or maybe back to back or something. I've no idea. So judo do that. It's not very often. So yeah, I mean, the opposite could be true for BJJ as well. They could just have a stand-up competition. I'm not sure how popular that would be, because it appears to me that BJJers don't really like the idea of getting thrown about. So
no, sorry. I mean, what I mean is like it. Like,
if I misunderstood.
So for you to kind of get some of the BJJ crowd across, that you run a class where you say, like, I'm going to be teaching you efficient stand-up that will be applicable to a competition, you know, so you don't get taken down. So you're stronger on your feet, etc. You can, you know, because you can pass more efficiently.
Maybe, but I mean, possibly. But you know, I'd say that Tom and Kev are just so good in all areas that, you know, and they specialize in BJJ, and so therefore I'm not sure that I'd be able to contribute that much.
I don't think you should. No, I don't think you should discredit yourself so quickly. I learned it wasn't until I went to judo I'd learnt the difference between gripping, and that's something I've never really kind of discussed. I mean, if Neil Adams can write a book on gripping, I'm sure, and Yuri is one of his proteges, I'm sure there's a lot that you could get across. I mean, it was something as simple as, you know, like we were never specifically taught in BJJ, right, just grab a hold, you know, just grip them. Whereas I went to judo and they said, well, look, why don't you
dominate the sleeve? And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just flick your fingers under. And when as soon as you feel them pull back, that's when you kind of grip. Because initially when I was doing it, God, the lactic acid that would build up in my hand. And I felt like Herman Monster, you know, like just like a. Whereas when I went to judo, I would alternate my grip position, my grip strength, etc. And I only learned that from going to judo. I never learned that in BJJ.
No. Well, yeah, I'm sure there is a fair amount I could offer. I watched, I covered a class for Tom one evening, and in order to prepare for that class, I watched Dana Ha's Feet to Floor advert that he did on BJJ Fanatics, you know, with what's the name? Is it Faria? What's his name? Bernardo Faria?
Yeah,
Bernardo. For me guy. Huge honor. I love that guy. He's brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah.
And
his accent is great.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so anyway, I think it was like 20 minutes, half an hour of Danaher explaining, you know, good techniques for takedowns, you know, and the principles of what would be a good technique for a BJJ contest. And essentially kind of surrounded, I mean, it was a while ago now that I looked at it, so I'd have to refresh my memory because I took notes on it. And I said, right, these are the techniques that Danaher, you know, purports to be effective for BJJ. And so therefore I'll just coach those because I know how to do those, you know. You know, I think it was a relatively successful session. I didn't get any of them wanting to do judo after it though. BJJ is just so good though, isn't it? You know, because you can just do it, you know, you can, you know, it doesn't hurt, does it? You know, you don't feel super beat up afterwards, you know, whereas judo's pretty intense, isn't it? You know, not that I want to do a bad advert for judo right now, but it's a lot better on our mat. We've got than most judo clubs, because I think we've got, you know, one of the best mats in the Midlands, maybe in the country now. You know, we've got a sprung floor and a Dollamore mat, yeah, it's a pleasure to get thrown on that. It's really, really lovely.
Yeah, if you're going to take a bump anywhere, then it's definitely at the Warwick Judo Club.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. You know, come and check us out and have a roll around and get thrown on our mat, because it's fantastic. It's really good.
So it's so like you said, it's not moving forward. It's not really kind of cross-pollinated just yet, but I mean,
not from BJJ to judo.
Yeah.
Having said that, a chap called Steve joined us on the session last night, but I think he had a bit of a judo background when he was younger. He appeared to really enjoy himself. But yeah, from BJJ to judo, not so much. From judo to BJJ, they love it.
What about
why do you think it is?
I've had this discussion with quite a few people, to be honest with you, and I think, you know what you said earlier about feeling uncomfortable about calling your head instructor at that time Aki Sensei. I think
oh, you think it's like all of the traditional stuff and the Japanese words and the bowing and
I think
a little bit,
I think the and I felt this as an adult, where you get even going to an open mat at judo, it's very formal, you know what I mean? And you go to a jits class and everybody's just
much more laid back,
much more relaxed. And I remember listening to I think it was Travis Stevens. He was on the Lex Friedman talking about this, and he said, is that us misinterpreting what the Japanese do? You know, like, is that us misinterpreting their culture? Because culturally, they are quite formal, aren't they? You know,
I mean, I've been to Japan. It's a lot more formal than, you know, say Warwick Judo Club. You know, I do try my best to, you know, have some standards, because you know, I'm aware my background and upbringing through Aki. Yeah, try my best, but I don't think that, do you know what, I don't think there's that much difference in the attitude between my judo classes and Tom and Kev's BJJ classes. Maybe the only difference that I can really think of is just the way that we show respect to one another, so we bow, whereas, you know, you guys like do a little fist bump and you know, so
Yeah.
you show respect, you
Yeah.
guys show respect.
Well,
And so it's the same
yeah.
thing really. It's just maybe just, you know, delivered in a slightly different fashion.
Yeah, and if you go to like more established like Brazilian jiu-jitsu kind of schools, like Gracie Barra are very formal, you know, and they have a picture on the wall of Mitz Maeda, they have a picture of Carlos Gracie Senior on the wall, and at the beginning of the class they bowed, and they bow to the students, then they start a very formal warm-up. It's not like that at every other different team or every different club. It certainly wasn't like that when I went to, like, I dropped in for a Christmas session because my club was closed, and did a session with Tom and Kev, and it wasn't like that at all. And
No,
I don't know. Yeah,
I guess
that's just
every
my,
club's different, isn't it?
yeah. It's my own interpretation of it.
So you don't think it's anything to do with getting thrown then? Because I'm wondering whether BJJers are just sort of fearful of being thrown around.
That might be a key point as well.
Can I just point out and qualify that somewhat? I don't mean that in a sort of fearful, derogatory fashion of being thrown around. The judo's better. Because I think I probably get thrown around more on my sessions than anyone else on the mat. You know, so I don't think it's an ability thing. I think it's literally the ability to take break falls.
Yeah, this is good. This is a really good discussion topic, to be honest with you, because I mean, I kind of knew how to break fall before I went, and that I think that saved me. And if I hadn't of, then I probably would have got the wind knocked out of me, which probably would have made me think, "Oh God, this is
don't really
rough."
like that.
And I noticed, having been thrown by a judoka quite a few times, especially having been thrown by my coach as well, who trained, albeit Paralympic, but to Olympic standard. The velocity is very, very, it's rapid, you know, and you've got to know, I suppose you've got to, one, give in and not resist, because that could be more detrimental and cause more damage, and go with the movement and just know that you've got, as long as you break fall at the right time, you're going to be able to get up and walk away. So maybe, I mean, I suppose it's more fit.
Yeah, I think
physically demanding.
I think probably, you know, when you've done judo for a little while, you become more comfortable with getting thrown, and therefore I'm surmising, like, for example, if somebody threw me and I was tense, that wouldn't be very pleasant, you know. But if when I get thrown, I'm nice and relaxed, and so therefore, because I'm relaxed, my body doesn't feel the impact in the same fashion as someone who's tense, I guess. So it's all about confidence, isn't it, really? And that's only going to come with time. So like when anyone joins my club, you know, I won't have them doing break falls, like, you know, flying through the air and hitting the mat, you know, a fraction, you know, hitting the mat with your arm a fraction before they land. I won't allow them to do that. I want everything to be kind of, is it amplitude, low amplitude? You know, I don't want people going up and over. I want them going around and staying low, and rolling, you know, wherever possible, because I'm just trying to get them used to the idea of getting thrown about, you know, and I'm trying to get them used to the idea of not posting, trying to stop themselves from landing. So, you know, I do try my best for that, but it's you know, the attrition for a rate for beginners in judo also is, I suspect, is probably greater than BJJ as well. And I think it's for the very reason of getting thrown. That's my perspective on it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think if you think about like frequency and duration, it's I might get thrown once a week, you know, as opposed to if I was doing judo. If I'm training 3 or 4 times a week, I might get thrown once out of that particular time. So yeah, the frequency and the duration is very low. Whereas if it's judo, it's going to be a lot, you know what I mean? And that takes time. And I think there's something to be said about going into it a little bit older and age specific. If you don't have, if you're a lot older and you're not used to that, and you have a very poor understanding or ability in regards to your functional ability. I mean, I've seen people who start BJJ can't even gambol. You know, they can't even do a basic gambol.
They can't do. Oh, I see that in children now. You know, when I asked them, sometimes as part of the warm up, I'll ask them to do some gymnastics. You know, just rolling, you know, from one side of the mat to the other. And I mean, I see that in some children, not all. You know, 90% of them are pretty good with it. But you know, there will be some that are fearful about, you know, the idea of turning themselves upside down, you know, losing that connection with the feet to the floor, and for adults, as you know, even more unnatural, isn't it? You know, if you've spent, you know, 30 years, you know, standing on your feet and not rolling around, you know, and trying not to fall, it's very counterintuitive, isn't it?
I always remember that first encounter I had with a junior at Coventry, and his grip felt different. I felt his grip immediately, and then he did this little thing where I wasn't in the position that he wanted me in, so he could then throw me. So he did this like little bump, and right from there was a spike in my own adrenaline system that caused me. And bear in mind, I'd been probably doing BJJ for about a couple of years by then. But having felt that, it felt different. And it immediately got my adrenaline system, because I was quite relaxed prior to that. It spiked my adrenaline system, which made me stiffen up. And that took a long time to get over that, to be bump and to reacting to that bump and thinking, well, I'm going in a minute, go with it.
Well, there's an awful lot of trust required in that process, isn't there? You know, because, you know, if your opponent, you know, lands you on your head, that's not going to be good, is it? You know, so there's an awful lot of trust required, you know. So yeah, you've got to, you know, you've got to build that up, and I guess it's going to take longer for some people than it will for others, you know. Yes, I'm not sure what the answer to you know, what the remedy for that would be. Maybe the remedy for that, to bring us full circle to the start of this conversation, might be what happened to Yamashita. You know, go and spend 6 months doing breakfalls in the corner. I don't know how well that'll translate to modern day Western thinking and culture of progression on every session, you know.
They'll probably just be like, yeah, I'll just do BJJ, thanks.
Yeah, they're like, well, what time are those BJJ classes? Oh, damn, lost another one.
So what's the kind of, we've got a few minutes left, what's the bigger kind of plan, what's the bigger plan for the club? Where do you see the club in the next kind of 5 years, or?
It's a tricky one, really, because, you know, for the last few years, the club's all been about survival, really. You know, there was the pandemic, there was moving premises, getting sort of moved on from premises because we were growing too quickly, and you know, securing these new premises, and now the new premises, it's all about trying to develop those premises, you know, improve those the facilities for the membership. So to be honest, there's not been a long-term vision. There's just been, you know, 3 guys loving the arts that we coach, and you know, how can we do that? You know, how can we do that to as many people as possible? You know, and as effectively as possible. So, you know, it's been about survival and just incremental improvement, the club at the moment. So we're coaching every evening, you know, every day. There's either judo or judo and BJJ. I don't think we'll get to the stage where and that's mainly in the evenings, during the week. I'm not sure whether we'll ever get to the stage of coaching sessions during the day. Maybe we will. I've been thinking about potentially putting a mezzanine in for the facilities, changing rooms and lounge area and sort of a cafeteria type viewing area. I was thinking about extending the mat somehow. Maybe, we might end up, looking for somewhere larger. Who knows where it's going to go? I'm not sure.
That's nice, actually, because when you say things like that, it becomes apparent that it is about the passion, your passion, Kev's and Tom's. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. We absolutely love judo and BJJ, and we love coaching it. And you know what? We love the membership as well. Everyone that comes to the club is awesome. They're all really, really nice people. I think the two arts kind of attract those kind of individuals, don't they?
Well, they've got a great filtering system of getting rid of bullies and idiots, and because you have to be accountable, don't you, on the mat?
Yes, yeah. You've all got to look after one another and grow together, and we've fostered that environment, and everybody's loving it, and it's such a great place to go in the evening. We're having an amazing time. It's brilliant.
Great, Dave. Okay, Dave, thanks very much for your time. I really
can't
appreciate
let you go just yet, I'm afraid, Paul.
Okay.
Because I prepared for our Zoom call this morning, and we mentioned about standing on the shoulders of giants and provenance of techniques, and sort of giving thanks to those that went before you and helped make things happen. I've got a list of people that I want to acknowledge and thank.
The floor is yours. All right? The floor is yours.
I think I might be out. It's like an acceptance speech, isn't it?
Go for it, Dave.
All right, cool. So first of all, my brother, sisters, my mum and dad, so my family back in Manchester, they supported me during the 90s. My mum used to say that me doing judo full time was like my version of a university. So my siblings all went to university, and obviously my parents supported them through that time, and all of the family supported me during that period. And so therefore there's no way that I'd be talking to you today if it hadn't been for my mum and my folks. So they'd be the first people. The second person on my list is Aki, so Sensei Akinori Hosaka. He was my coach, my mentor. He was my best man at my wedding, and I loved him absolutely dearly. Third one on my list is Neil Adams. So for sharing his world-class judo and friendship with me. All of my friends, particularly Tom, for putting up with my endless dreaming of doing great things, and now he's helping me try and achieve those things as well. Nick, my business partner, because he's been a great sounding board for me, and he's always given me really good advice. All of the club's membership, because they've been super patient through the changes that the club's gone through. So we were originally a few years back in a back room in Warwick Football Racing Club, and in actual fact, Gary Wheeler's on my list. He's the chairman of the football club. So if it hadn't been for Gary giving us that room, our club may not have even started. He kind of went along with my vision, and he's been a pillar of the community in Warwick. Then
last 30 seconds, it's going to stop recording.
All right, and then Kev for trusting in me and Tom, but mostly Sophie, my wife, you know, because she stood up for me, stood by me for the last 30 years doing all of my training and traveling and coaching. So that's it. That's my list. Timed perfectly. Finished, I think.
Bang on. Thank you very much, Dave, for your time. Much appreciated.
All right. No worries. It's a pleasure to talk to you, Paul. Thank you.